A mobster waved goodbye and never breathed again. Welcome to Marple Mysteries. I am your host, Harrington. Tell me your city. I love reading them. Wolfe walks into gangland shadows. I was at my desk in the front room, window cracked against October, doing battle with correspondence and boredom. Fritz was in the kitchen, Wolfe upstairs with the orchids, and the brownstone had that rare hush. Then the bell rang, one firm jab, and I knew the hush was about to get sentenced. The guy on the stoop wore black like a uniform, overcoat, hat, tie, all cut neat and conservative. He was built to vanish in a crowd, except for his eyes, pale and restless, the kind that keep checking exits. "Mr. Goodwin?" he said. "Depends who's asking." "Eddie Varin." The name rang a faint bell from old crime stories. He took his hat off and sat when I pointed, holding it as if it was the only honest thing he owned. "I need to see Nero Wolfe," he said. "Everybody does. What's on your mind?" "Goodbye." I waited for the rest. He didn't supply it. "Try a full sentence." "I'm leaving town tonight. For good. I want to leave something in safe hands, and I want one thing straight before I go. If it isn't straight, I won't go. Safe hands means you're scared. Straight means you're guilty. Which is it?" "Scared," he said. "Not guilty." "Of what?" He glanced at the stairs. "The people I'm quitting." "Who?" "The Marotta outfit." He said it low, but the name never gets quieter. "So you're going to walk out on the waterfront choir. That takes nerve." "I've got nerve," he said. "Marotta isn't sentimental. If he thought I was a danger, I'd already be underwater. Instead, he told me to go clean and go quiet. He offered money, a ticket, and a warning. That doesn't fit." That was interesting enough to make me think of Wolfe's timetable. Beer at 11, orchids at 4, and no gangsters ever on the guest list. Still, the brownstone has a way of attracting trouble like a porch light attracts moths. I asked myself whether this moth was carrying a match. Varin sat steady, but his fingers kept kneading the felt brim. I could smell gun oil and soap under cologne. Maybe he's had religion. Maybe he's setting me up. His jaw tightened. "A shipment got grabbed last week. Guns. Not ours. Somebody pinned it on my crew. The cops got a sniff. Marotta says he'll handle it if I'm not around. I don't believe him." "What do you believe?" "That he wants a fall guy who can't talk. If I vanish, the blame sticks. If I stay, I get buried. Either way, I'm done unless I know who's moving the pieces." I watched him. He wasn't acting. He was braced. "Why bring it here? You've got lawyers." "Wolfe doesn't take their money." He gave a bleak smile. "I met him once, years ago. He said, 'When you decide to stop being a fool, do it intelligently.' I decided. I remembered. Flattery and a gangster in my chair. Wolfe will love the flattery if he loves anything about this. What's the fee?" 5,000 now, 5 after, and something else. Something else is fog. He reached into his coat and brought out a small brown envelope. He set it on my desk. "That's now," he said. "The other thing is a name Wolfe will want to hear." "Marotta's?" "No, close to him. Closer than I like to say down here." That was the first quiver in his voice, more like strain than fear. I weighed the envelope, knew it was real, and felt the case settle on my shoulders. "How long before your train turns into a funeral?" I asked. 6 hours. "And if Wolfe tells you you're wrong?" "Then I go anyway," he said. "But I go knowing which direction to keep my back covered. If he tells me I'm right, I stay and fight, but not blind." Fritz's step sounded in the hall. Above us, a door opened with Wolfe's careful timing, too early for his liking, which meant the brownstone had been disturbed enough to matter. I stood. "All right, Eddie Varin. You've bought yourself 5 minutes of Nero Wolfe. Try to spend them like a man who wants more than a gangland goodbye." Wolfe came down the stairs like a reluctant monarch, answering a bell he hadn't ordered rung. Yellow pajamas under a maroon dressing gown made him look less lazy than sovereign. His face held only that mild annoyance that meant I'd better justify the invasion. "Archie," he said, "the odor of apprehension has reached the second floor. Explain." "Eddie Varyn. He's leaving town tonight. Wants your head on whether he's walking into a coffin." Wolfe's eyes shifted to the visitor and settled there. Varyn didn't flinch, but his hat kept turning in his hands. "You are connected with Mr. Marotta," Wolfe said. "Yes." "You intend to sever that connection. Tonight. Sit still. Speak briefly. Do not embroider." Varyn complied. He told about the stolen gun shipment, the blame being steered at his crew, Marotta's sudden willingness to let him quit, and his suspicion that "go clean and go quiet" really meant go where you can't talk. He repeated the fee and the promised name close to him. Wolfe listened without moving, eyelids lowering and lifting as if weighing each word. When Varyn stopped, Wolfe said, "I do not accept clients from organized crime." "Then don't," Varyn said. "Just tell me if I'm right." Wolfe ignored the challenge. "Archie, beer." I fetched it. He sipped once and set the glass down. "Mr. Varyn, why do you suppose Mr. Marotta permits you to depart?" "He said I wasn't worth chasing." "That is not an answer. Why now?" "I told him I was through. He didn't argue." "After a shipment was stolen and your name was whispered to the police?" "Yeah." "Then allowing your exit is strategy. Against whom?" "Against me." "Perhaps. But if you disappear, you are useless as a scapegoat unless the police move on you. Have they questioned you, searched you, issued warrants?" "No, they're sniffing." Wolfe grunted softly. "The police are not moving. Yet Mr. Marotta is." He looked at me. "Comment." "Maybe Marotta wants him out of the way for some other deal." Varyn shot me a look. Wolfe returned to him. "What is this name you offered?" Varyn hesitated, then said, "Luca Marotta's sister, Celia." That made the room smaller. Celia had a society face and a reputation, and she was never far from her brother's affairs. Wolfe's brows rose. "Go on." "She handles his books, the real ones. Lately, she's been meeting a lawyer downtown, Charles Ralston. Quiet, expensive. I tailed her twice. She went to his office, stayed an hour. I don't know why. If she's making a play and Luca knows, maybe I'm being swept off the board before it starts." Wolfe leaned back deeper into his chair. "You suggest conflict in the Marotta family. If so, you may be collateral, but your conclusion is premature. That's why I'm here. Indeed. You will remain available today. You will not leave town until I say so." He opened his mouth. Wolfe lifted a hand. "I cannot assess your danger while you are in motion. You will go upstairs to the south bedroom. Fritz will bring lunch. You will not telephone anyone." Varyn measured him, then nodded once and followed me up. The south bedroom was safer than any hotel he'd ever seen. I left him there with a warning about the faucet. Back downstairs, Wolfe was already dialing Saul Panzer. While Wolfe spoke in his calm, economical way, I opened the envelope. 5,000 in hundreds. Clean. I pocketed it and reviewed the pieces. Missing guns, a gangster who wants out, and a sister bookkeeper holding conferences with a lawyer. No bodies yet, but the city was clearing its throat. Wolfe covered the receiver. "Archie, you will go to Mr. Ralston's office. Be polite. Observe. Learn why Ms. Marotta is there. Then, see Sergeant Stebbins. Discover what the police know of the stolen shipment and whether Mr. Varyn's name is in their thoughts. Return by 3:30. I grinned. "Because 4 is orchids." "You are correct." I went for my coat, feeling the brownstone's air shift. Outsiders had entered, and the walls were listening. Upstairs, Eddie Varyn waited. Downstairs, Wolfe positioned, and somewhere in the city, Celia Marotta was moving pieces Wolfe couldn't see from his chair. Yet. I took the elevator down with a pocket full of Marotta cash and a head full of Marotta worries. The October air outside was sharp enough to make a man cough before he lied. I grabbed a cab and gave Ralston's address. Ralston's office sat on the 11th floor of a building that had once been a hotel. The receptionist was blonde, bored, and trained to keep wolves out. I gave her a smile. Archie Goodwin, to see Mr. Ralston. Appointment? Not with him. Tell him I'm from Nero Wolfe. That earned a phone call and a wave. Ralston's outer office was quiet enough to hear money thinking. His door was ajar. I knocked, entered, and found Charles Ralston at the window with a cigarette he wasn't smoking. He was neat, expensive, and alert. Mr. Goodwin, Nero Wolfe's assistant. On loan, I'm here about Miss Marotta. He didn't blink. I can't discuss a client. I just want to know she's alive. Wolfe hates to be rude to corpses. A muscle moved at his jaw. She left 20 minutes ago, alive. Annoyed? At circumstances. That's all. I sat without asking. Then let's talk circumstances. A truckload of guns went missing. Eddie Varren thinks he's the fall guy. Miss Marotta has been seeing you. If those are unrelated, I'll eat my hat. Ralston sat slowly. Your hat is safe. She consulted me about protection. From whom? That's privileged. Protection for whom, then? He studied me. For herself, and possibly for her brother. From what? From a partner who is no longer trustworthy. Partner in business or blood? He exhaled. Mr. Goodwin, you're fishing in waters with sharks and subpoenas. I advise you to leave. I stood. Anything I can quote to Wolfe? Tell him if he wants information, he should ask through proper channels, and tell him Miss Marotta is frightened. That last bit was free. Down in the cab, I lined up thought dots. Celia scared. A partner untrustworthy. Eddie Varren possibly selected for a quiet burial. The only way to tie it was to see what the law sniffers had. Sergeant Stebbins was at homicide. I found him at his desk behind a barricade of paper. Goodwin, he said, you're early for a confession. I came to borrow your sins. What do you know about missing guns? His eyes narrowed. Where'd you hear about that? From a man who doesn't want to be a headline. We got a tip a week ago, he said. Freight truck hijacked out in Jersey. Crates marked machine parts, but a dockman saw the slip before it vanished. Weapons. Federal job now, but Marotta territory was involved. Any suspects? Not officially. Unofficially, Varren's name floated. Somebody said he was sore about being cut out of a deal. Somebody in the outfit told you that? Somebody who wants immunity. He gave me a look. What's Wolfe doing? Trying to keep everybody alive while he thinks. Who's feeding you Varren's name? Stebbins rubbed his chin. If he's being set up, it explains our thin file. We've got pressure to move on Marotta soon. If the feds can link those guns to him, we hit his docks. But it's thin. Before I went, I asked Stebbins who the partner might be. He shrugged and said Marotta had been meeting a new importer, a slick type named Victor Nello, with political friends and a taste for artillery. The name meant nothing to me, which meant it could mean everything. I told Stebbins to keep his hat on and his ears open, and he snorted for Wolfe's sake. His phone rang. He listened, then hung up with a face like sour milk. Celia Marotta just called. Wants to see me. Says she's coming in with her lawyer. Well, that's handy. It's trouble. If she's scared enough to walk into this building, something's moving fast. I left him and headed back to the brownstone, watching corners the way a man does when gangsters are shifting seats. By the time I reached home, my mind had a picture I didn't like. Celia trying to cut a deal, a partner turning traitor, and Eddie Varren shoved into the gap to absorb the blast. The brownstone looked the same from the sidewalk, but once Wolfe takes a case, the place grows a pulse. I let myself in and found Fritz in the hall with the quiet worry he saves for broken souffles and dangerous clients. "He is resting," Fritz said, "but he has asked twice for you." "Then I'm late." I went to the office. Wolfe sat in his chair, hands folded on his belly, eyes on a yellow pad. The beer glass was empty, which meant he had been thinking. That alone could get a man indicted. "You saw Ralston," he said. "Yeah." He confirmed Celia is scared, mentioned an untrustworthy partner, and tried to throw me out politely. "Stebbins says the hijacked gun shipment is now federal. Our file is thin, and Varen's name is being floated by somebody begging immunity. He also says Marotta's been meeting a new importer, Victor Nello." Wolfe's lids dipped. Victor Nello, a broker of industrial supplies with political friends. Continue. "Stebbins just got a call. Celia is going to homicide with Ralston." Wolfe's head lifted a fraction. "Today. By now she's there. If she's walking into that building, she's either cutting a deal or looking for cover. Or both. I require you here." He tapped the pad. "We have a new element." He slid it over. One line in his blocky hand said, "The red jar has changed places." I blinked. "What red jar?" "The paprika on the center pantry shelf." Fritz noticed it moved to the rear. Fritz appeared in the doorway, offended at being evidence. "I place my jars in order, Mr. Archie. Someone has touched it. So someone got into the pantry. Deliberately, either to search or to warn." Wolfe looked at Fritz. "You did not open it?" "Of course not. I'm not a savage." "Then we open it now." He had me fetch the tin. I lifted the lid. Paprika is supposed to be red dust. This was red dust with a small rolled slip of paper buried in it. I hooked it out with tweezers. Wolfe unfolded it and read aloud, "Leave the man upstairs to the street, or the street will come for him." No signature, no flourish. "They know Varen's here," I said. "Certainly." Wolfe's mouth tightened. "The trespasser did not seize him. He left a message. That suggests caution. Still, caution from gangland can mean a knife held behind the back. Whoever entered our pantry knew Fritz's roots and my absence, which narrowed possibilities to a few. Or they don't want to shoot out on your rug. Yet." Wolfe grunted. "Bring Mr. Varen down." Upstairs, Varen was standing by the window with his coat on, as if he'd been waiting for the cue to bolt. He followed me down fast. Wolfe handed him the note. He read it without changing color, but his hands went still. "That's Luca's style. He likes kitchen jokes." "Then it is from Mr. Marotta?" Wolfe asked. "Or from someone who wants me to think so. But it means he has eyes on your door. Is there any reason he would refrain from taking you by force?" Varen snorted. "He respects Wolfe, or he respects the heat that comes if he doesn't. But if he thinks I'll talk, he'll do it." "Are you about to talk?" "To cops? Not unless I'm pinned." "To you?" "Sure." "Then talk. What is your last contact with Victor Nello?" Varen frowned. "I met him twice. Luca brought him to a warehouse meeting. Nello was smooth, said he could move cargo without questions. Luca liked him. Did you like him?" "I don't like people who smile too fast." He looked at me like I was already gone. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. "You're not the only one being removed, Mr. Varen. Perhaps you are expendable because another structure is being built, one that requires silence from the old crew." Varen swallowed. "You're saying Nello and Celia?" "I'm saying nothing yet." Wolfe reached for the phone. "But I will speak to Saul Panzer and then invite certain persons here before dinner. Mr. Varen, you will remain. Archie, prepare for visitors. They will arrive soon, and they will not expect hospitality." Saul Panzer arrived first, because Saul always arrived first when the air in the brownstone went metallic. He stepped in. Grey suit, grey hat, grey patience. Wolfe gave him the case in a handful of sentences. Saul nodded, took station by the front window, and became part of the curtains. Inspector Kramer came next. Fritz showed him into the office, and he filled it with bulk and annoyance. "You call me to tell me somebody's been in your pantry," he growled. "Then Archie says you're hiding Eddie Varen. Which is it, Wolfe?" "Both," Wolfe said. "A trespasser left a written threat. The threat concerns Mr. Varen and a stolen shipment of firearms." "Sit." Kramer sat, scowling. The bell rang again, 2 quick taps. Celia Marotta stood on the stoop with Charles Ralston behind her. She wore a dark coat and a face that had been rehearsing calm. The calm slipped when she saw Kramer. "Inspector," she said. "Miss Marotta." "It was my idea," Wolfe said. "Come in. Sit." Mr. Ralston remained silent unless addressed. Ralston's jaw tightened, but he took the chair I indicated. Celia sat on the sofa, hands clasped hard enough to whiten her knuckles. "You visited homicide today," Wolfe said. Her eyes widened. "How? Your delay spoke of it. Did it help?" "It gave me a clock," she said. "They think Luca is tied to the hijacked truck. I told them he isn't." Kramer snorted. "You told me that too?" Wolfe lifted a hand. "Inspector. Miss Marotta, you sought Mr. Ralston for protection. From whom?" She hesitated. "Victor Nello." From the stairs came a soft laugh. Eddie Varen was halfway down, listening. He stopped in the doorway. "Explain your fear," Wolfe said. "Nello came to Luca with roots and favors," she said. "Luca's been squeezed for months. Nello looked like a quiet way out. Then the guns vanished. Nello used our schedules and permits. He took the truck to make Luca buy the cargo back at his price and to make the police think Luca is arming. If Luca can't pay, Nello sells him out. If he pays, Nello owns him." Kramer leaned forward. "Proof?" "The ledgers. The real ones. I copied them. I took them to Mr. Ralston so he could arrange immunity for me if Luca wouldn't listen." Wolfe's eyes stayed on her. "You did not tell your brother directly." "I tried. He said I was panicking. He trusts Nello because Nello flatters him, and because Luca is tired." Wolfe nodded. "Then you chose another lever. Mr. Varen." She turned. "I wanted Eddie safe. He's the only man Luca hears besides me. If Eddie was out of town, Luca might stop bristling and read what I showed him. Eddie came fully into the room. So you told him to ship me out?" "No. I said you were nervous and should cool off. I didn't know he'd push you onto a train tonight. You didn't warn me. If I warned you, you'd go to him first. He would think you were playing me against him. He would shut you up." Eddie's shoulders eased a fraction. Wolfe tapped the desk. "We have a triangle. Mr. Marotta, Mr. Nello, and Miss Marotta's knowledge. The stolen guns are the fulcrum. Mr. Varen, did Nello have access to the run sheets?" "Yes." Luca handed him the manifests. "Then he could stage the theft and frame whomever he wished." Wolfe looked to Ralston. "Where are the copies?" Ralston opened his briefcase. "Here." "Good." Wolfe turned to Kramer. "You will not seize them yet." "The hell I won't." "You will sit," Wolfe said evenly. "If you take them now, the man who trespassed here will answer by taking lives before nightfall. I shall read them, extract what I need, and then you may have them." Kramer glowered, but he didn't move. Wolfe's eyes met mine for an instant, the kind of look that says the game has stepped onto the board. Celia stiffened. Eddie's hand slid inside his coat, and Kramer's fingers twitched toward his holster. The brownstone held its breath. Saul did not move from the window. Saul's voice drifted from the hall. "Wolfe, a car just pulled up. Victor Nello's." The bell hadn't rung. Nello didn't need to announce himself. Saul's words turned every head. Kramer was halfway out of his chair before Wolfe's voice stopped him. "Inspector, if you go to that door with a pistol, you will sell this house to the morgue. Remain. Archie will admit him." I went to the hall. Through the glass I saw a tall man in a camel hair coat and a smile that could be rented by the hour. Victor Nello carried no hat. When I opened the door, he spread his hands. "Mr. Goodwin, I'm here to see Nero Wolfe." "Lucky day. Come in." He stepped past me like a man entering property he already owned. Close up, he was handsome, eyes hard and amused. He glanced toward the office as if he'd memorized the floor plan. "I didn't ring," he said. "Your bell is so public. Your manners are optional." He smiled and followed me in. The office was crowded enough for trouble. Nello took it in without surprise, then dipped his head to Wolfe. "Mr. Wolfe, I'm honored." Wolfe did not rise. "Mr. Nello, sit." Nello chose the chair farthest from Eddie Varin, which told me he'd already seen him. He also saw Celia, and his smile thinned. "Celia," he said softly, "so you came here?" She didn't answer. Ralston watched him with loyally frost. Kramer sat like a bulldog at a chain. Saul stayed by the doorway. Wolfe said, "Mr. Nello, we are discussing the hijacking of a shipment of firearms and the attempt to assign blame. Your name is central." Nello opened his palms. "Central? I'm a broker. I don't hijack trucks." Yet the truck was taken using schedules you had access to. Access many had. Luca had. His men had. His gaze slid to Eddie. Some people were unhappy with Luca. "You know that, Mr. Varin." Eddie's mouth curled. "I know you talk slick." "Let him talk," Wolfe said. Nello leaned toward Wolfe. "You've been misinformed. The stolen cargo wasn't mine. If Luca's sister tells you otherwise, it's because she's frightened." Celia's voice came steady. "I'm frightened of you, Victor. You used Luca's trust to set him up." His brows rose in practiced sorrow. "You're overwrought." Wolfe's eyes tightened. "You proposed a partnership to Mr. Marotta, offered political shelter, and you control another stream of weapons. True." Nello chuckled. "I can move goods. I profit by cooperation." "Then why did a messenger enter my pantry and threaten Mr. Varin?" Nello looked puzzled. "Your pantry? I hire no messengers in kitchens." "Perhaps Mr. Marotta did." "Luca doesn't trespass on Wolfe. If you got a note, it's from someone else." Nello's head turned, catching Eddie in profile. Maybe from a man who wants Eddie gone because Eddie knows too much. Eddie started to rise. Kramer's hand drifted to his belt. Wolfe's voice dropped like a lid. "Enough. Mr. Nello, you are here because you expected Mr. Varin to have departed. You wished to confirm he had. He has not." For a heartbeat, Nello's face went still. "Or I came because Luca said your address was being whispered." "Do not parry. You came to measure danger." Wolfe gestured at Ralston's briefcase. "Miss Marotta's ledgers show payments from your companies to shell firms that owned the hijacked truck. They show a surcharge demanded after the theft. They show you meant to pin the loss on Mr. Varin and then sell Mr. Marotta your protection at the price of his docks." Kramer made a sound like a door slamming. Nello's eyes went flat. "You haven't read those ledgers," he said. "They're copies. Even if they show that, there are explanations." "Provide one," Wolfe said. Nello licked his lips. "I'm not here to be tried. I prefer facts." Wolfe leaned forward a fraction. "You will telephone Mr. Marotta and ask him to come here at once. If you refuse, Inspector Kramer will arrest you for conspiracy, and I will give him the ledgers. If you comply, you may salvage your future." Nello stared at Wolfe, then at Kramer, then at Celia. The clock in the hall took seconds. Finally, Nello said, "You play rough for a man who never leaves his chair." Nello's smile came back, smaller and sharper. He pulled a phone from his coat. "All right," he said. "I'll call Luca. Don't expect gratitude." "Expect accuracy," Wolfe said. Nello dialed and put it on speaker. A heavy voice answered. "Yeah. Luca, it's Victor. I'm at Wolfe's house. Celia is here. Eddie Varin is here. Inspector Kramer, too. You should come over." Silence, then a low growl. "What the hell are you doing in Wolfe's house?" "Trying to keep this from getting stupid. Come now." Another pause. I'll be there." Nello ended the call and sat back. Wolfe nodded to Saul, who slid into the hall. I knew he'd be on the stoop to make sure Marotta arrived as a guest and not a siege. Kramer couldn't keep still. "Wolfe, if those books show what you say, I haul him in now." "You will wait," Wolfe said. "Mr. Marotta must hear this here. I have no wish to see him lash out on the streets because his pride was cut elsewhere." Celia looked down. "He'll be furious." "Fury is manageable when observed," Wolfe told her. Eddie Varin stayed against the wall, eyes on the door. "If Luca comes, he comes armed." "Saul will discourage that," Wolfe said, "and the inspector will assist." Nello chuckled. "You play rough for a man who never leaves his chair." The next minutes were thick. Celia sat rigid. Ralston murmured legal comforts. Kramer glared at the ledgers like they were already evidence tags, and Nello whistled. Wolfe was a mountain. The bell rang. I opened the door to Luca. Marotta, with Saul a step behind him. Marotta was shorter than Rumour, but broad in a dark suit. His eyes went straight to Eddie. "So you're here," he said. "Yeah," Eddie said. "I'm here." Marotta's gaze slid to Celia. "You brought cops to our family." "I brought Wolfe," she said. The cops followed. He looked at Nello. "You told me to come." "Why?" Nello lifted his chin. "Wolfe thinks you're being played. Celia thinks I'm playing you. Eddie thinks you're burying him. So here we are." Marotta's jaw worked. "Wolfe, I didn't ask for this." "No," Wolfe said. "You are the subject. Sit." "I don't sit for anybody." "You sit for the truth," Wolfe said evenly. "Or you stand and go to prison. Choose." Kramer shifted like he'd been handed a gift. Marotta's eyes flicked to him, then back to Wolfe. After a long second he sat, stiffly, on the sofa beside Celia, leaving space between them. Wolfe said, "Your sister has brought me your ledgers. They show Mr. Nello arranged transportation for the stolen firearms through intermediaries, then pressed you with the loss to accept his protection. He also arranged for blame to rest on Mr. Varin so that your most independent lieutenant would be removed. Does any of that surprise you?" Marotta stared at Celia. "You took my books?" "I copied them," she said, "because you wouldn't listen." His face flushed. "Listen to what?" "Victor has poured money into my docks for years." "Money that makes a noose," Wolfe said. "Mr. Nello's political friends are friends to spectacle, to a raid that crowns new leadership in the waterfront guns trade." Marotta's eyes narrowed. "Victor?" Nello spread his hands. "Luca, this is absurd. I brokered a shipment you asked me to move. If it got hit, that's on your security. Eddie's been a problem since summer. I suggested a vacation. You chose a train." Eddie barked a laugh. "Vacation in a coffin." Wolfe raised a finger. "Mr. Nello, why did your shell company pay the owner of the hijacked truck 3 days before the theft?" Ralston opened the ledger and slid it to Kramer. Kramer leaned in. Nello's eyes hardened. Then he shrugged. "Consulting fee. Logistics advice." "Advice to hijack," Wolfe said. "And why was my pantry searched today?" Nello's smile vanished. "It wasn't me." "Then someone acting for one of you," Wolfe said. "That threat was meant to make me release Mr. Varin. I did not. The plan fails unless the planner adapts. Now we shall see who adapts first." No one spoke. The room tightened as if a rope had been pulled too tight. Wolfe let the silence ferment, he knew, and the kind of quiet that makes men talk to stop hearing themselves breathe. Nello was the first to blink, but it was with contempt. "Let's be clear," he said. "You've got copies of books from a hysterical sister, a bruised corp who wants headlines, and a grudge from a man who's quitting. You don't have a case." "I have a pattern," Wolfe said, "and a weakness." "Yours?" Marotta shifted. "Victor, if this is true, you're dead." "Luca," Nello said softly, "if you believe this, You're already dead. Wolfe is baiting you into turning on your only ally. Celia flinched. He isn't your ally, Kramer growled. Watch your mouth. Wolfe waved him down. Mr. Nello, if you were innocent, you would say so simply and leave. You have not left because you cannot. Nello leaned forward. What is it you want, Wolfe? Confession is efficient, but not necessary. I want the guns. Marotta stared. The guns. The missing shipment. If they remain hidden, your conflict will end in blood. If they are produced, Mr. Nello loses leverage and Mr. Varin ceases to be a scapegoat. Nello laughed. In your parlor, you're insane. I want their location. Now. Marotta's breathing grew audible. Victor, where are they? Nello looked at him sadly. You're asking because Wolfe told you to. And your mistake, Wolfe said, was believing you could use my house for intimidation. The pantry visit was a search. The searcher expected to find Mr. Varin downstairs and alone and to remove him quietly. Eddie Varin's hand slid out of his coat. You sent somebody after me. I sent no one, Nello said. But you've made enemies. You skimmed. Maybe someone wanted you silent before you left. Eddie went a shade darker. You ever accuse me again, I'll... Sit, Wolfe said. Eddie stayed planted. Wolfe turned to Celia. Did you tell anyone besides Mr. Ralston that Mr. Varin might be here? No, I didn't know he would be. Inspector. Kramer shook his head. I kept my mouth shut. Stebbins knew she was coming, that's all. Wolfe nodded. Then only Mr. Marotta and Mr. Nello had motive to verify Mr. Varin's presence. Mr. Marotta respects my threshold. Mr. Nello does not, therefore the trespass was for Mr. Nello. Nello made a small clapping gesture. Lovely logic, but you're still short of proof. Wolfe's eyes chilled. Proof is arriving. Saul appeared in the doorway holding a small black camera case. I went out back, he said. Found a man crouched in the areaway with a pick set and a .32. Uniform took him. He dropped this. He handed Wolfe a crumpled valet slip. Wolfe read it, then passed it to Kramer. A rental unit on Riverside Drive, paid in cash 2 days ago under the name Victor Nello. Kramer's face lit. That's enough for a warrant. And enough, Wolfe said, to make Mr. Nello talk before you return with one. Nello's smile was thin ice. You think I keep guns in a rental? I think you keep proof there, perhaps the cargo. Either way, you will tell us what is there, or the inspector will learn it and the consequences will multiply. Marotta's eyes were on Nello like drills. Victor, tell me. For the first time, Nello looked cornered. His gaze darted to the door, to Saul, to Eddie, to the inspector's hand near his cuffs. He exhaled slowly. All right, the guns are there. In the unit, I was holding them for a buyer. I wasn't framing you, Luca. I was just taking advantage of luck. Wolfe's voice stayed level. Name the buyer. Nello swallowed. A man from out of state. He calls himself Grady. That's all I know. Convenient, Wolfe said. Inspector, you will go now. Take Mr. Nello. Retrieve the shipment. Kramer surged up. Saul moved to Nello's flank. Nello stood, smoothing his coat. He looked at Celia, then at Marotta. You'll regret believing a fat detective over your own instincts, he said softly. Marotta didn't answer. His eyes were wet and murderous and tired. As they led Nello out, the room let out its breath, but not its danger. Not for long, though. Kramer and Saul took Nello out. The front door closed, and the brownstone went back to being itself, except for the people in it. Celia sat on the sofa, staring at the carpet. Eddie Varin rubbed the back of his neck. Luca Marotta stood by the window, shoulders hunched, looking smaller than when he'd come in. Wolfe reached for his beer. Miss Marotta, you have accomplished what you intended. Your brother will not be destroyed by that shipment. Celia's voice was low. He will be destroyed anyway. By what he is. That is not my province, Wolfe said. He turned to Marotta. You are now in a position to decide whether your organization serves you or consumes you. Marotta didn't look at him. You think a decision fixes it? A decision begins it. Marotta's mouth twitched. You got my guns back and a traitor delivered. What do you want, another 5 grand? I want nothing further, Wolfe said. Mr. Verin paid my fee. You may leave when you wish. Marotta finally faced him. The anger had leaked out, leaving raw tension. You kept Eddie alive. Why? Because you were about to kill him without necessity. Marotta looked at Eddie. You were going to run? Eddie nodded. I was going to live. Marotta's jaw worked. If you stay straight. No side deals. Eddie gave a short bark. Straight in your world. Straighter than Nero's. Marotta rubbed his face. You saved my skin today. Don't make me sorry. Eddie met his eyes. I'll stay long enough to see how the wind blows. After that, I'm still thinking of leaving. Marotta let that sit. He turned to Celia. We'll talk later. Not here. She stood. We'll talk now, Luca. You ignored me because you didn't want the truth. If you don't change, you won't have a sister. He stared at her, then looked away. You're my sister. Not your bookkeeper, she said. I'm done being that. Ralston cleared his throat. Miss Marotta, and I will be available to the department. She has cooperated voluntarily. Marotta gave the lawyer a flat look. Keep her safe. That's your job now. He picked up his coat. Wolfe, I owe you. Do not pay debts with future mischief, Wolfe said. Marotta's lips curved slightly. You say things that hurt without raising your voice. He opened the door himself and left, footsteps firm on the stairs. When he was gone, Eddie exhaled like a man stepping out of a tunnel. Well, he said, that's one goodbye postponed. You're still in danger, Wolfe told him. Mr. Nero's buyer may not appreciate the loss. Eddie nodded. I'll watch for him. And watch for any attempt by Mr. Marotta to make you pay for today's humiliation. He is proud. Eddie grinned lopsidedly. Pride is his breakfast. He glanced at the stairs. If you need me, I'm upstairs. After he went, Fritz entered with the dinner tray, wearing his best expression of relief and disapproval. The visitors are finished. For now, I said. He looked at Wolfe. No more strangers in my kitchen tonight. Wolfe's mouth softened. I shall endeavor to protect your spices, Fritz. Fritz sniffed and disappeared toward the dining room. Wolfe watched him go, then looked at me. You see that even criminals are subject to appetite and folly. Mr. Nero wished to swallow Mr. Marotta, and nearly choked on his own cleverness. You saved a gangster from another gangster, I said. Justice is often merely the prevention of a worse injustice. He rose. Come. Dinner is ready, and I refuse to let moral reflection cool my soup. We ate in silence a while, the way you do after the city has tried to elbow into your house. When Wolfe set down his spoon, he said, almost to himself, a man who sells violence imagines he governs it. He does not. He is governed by the first person who offers him a sharper price. I wiped my mouth. And by sisters who keep receipts. He gave me a sideways look. Indeed, the Gangland Goodbye, Archie, is never to the gang. It is to the illusion that one can live by treachery and die of old age. By the time coffee showed up, the brownstone had returned to its normal soundtrack. Fritz clinking china, Wolfe breathing like an offended furnace, and me trying not to look pleased with myself. Outside, the city could still be chewing on sirens, but in here the walls were settling back into their ancient opinion that nothing truly bad could happen where the chairs were expensive. The phone rang during Wolfe's second cup. I took it in the office. Kramer's voice was a bulldozer with a grin under it. We got the guns, he said. Unit was stacked to the rafters. Nero's singing now that he sees federal bars. Says this Grady is a buyer for a southern militia outfit. Feds are happy. Good. Any apology for doubting Wolfe's pantry instincts? Don't push it. Tell him, Nello had a key cut for your back door. We found it in his pocket, so your trespasser is officially his. That'll warm Fritz's heart. Thanks, Inspector. When I hung up, Wolfe was watching me over the rim of his cup. I gave him the highlights. He nodded once, not in triumph, but in closure. Mr. Nello's key confirms our inference, he said. It also confirms that the sanctity of this house is not self-sustaining. We must occasionally defend it. Put that on a plaque, I said. Maybe hang it over the pantry. He ignored the joke. Mr. Varin will sleep poorly for some nights. So will Marotta. Marotta's sleep is his own to curate. Wolfe set the cup down. Do you feel sympathy for any of them? I thought about Eddie Varin upstairs, a guy who wanted out of a life built like a trap. I thought about Celia, brave enough to walk into homicide with a ledger and a lawyer, and about Luca Marotta, who had the weary face of a king whose crown was made of rust. Then I thought about Victor Nello, who'd walked in here smiling. Sympathy is scarce, I said. Celia, yes. Eddie, some. Luca, maybe in a moral abstract. Nello, none. Wolfe leaned back. Adequate. After a moment he added, Celia Marotta chose truth over loyalty, a severer choice than most imagine. Yet she did it to preserve her brother as well as herself. You'll tell her that? I will not. Compliments are often mistaken for invitations. He paused. Retrieve Mr. Varin. I wish to speak with him once more before he departs. Upstairs, Eddie was sitting on the bed, shoes off, staring at his hands. He looked up when I told him the guns were found, and Nello was boxed. He let out a breath. So I'm alive for another day. Wolfe wants a word. We went down. Eddie stood in the office, hat in hand again. Wolfe said, Mr. Varin, you are free to leave this evening, or to remain with Mr. Marotta. I do not advise either course, merely observe that delay is no longer coerced. Eddie nodded. I owe you a thanks. Payment has been made. Gratitude is irrelevant. Eddie laughed once. That's Wolfe. He turned to me. Archie, you ever think about getting a safer hobby? Every time I get shot at. He sobered. I'm taking the train anyway. Not because Luca pushed me, but because I've had enough. If he wants me dead now, he'll have to chase me. Wolfe's eyes were steady. If you want to stop being a fool, do it intelligently. Change your name, your habits, above all, your appetite for risk. Eddie's mouth twitched. I'll try. Not sure I've got your kind of appetite. He shook my hand, nodded to Wolfe, and left. When the door shut, the house seemed to exhale. Wolfe glanced at his orchid notes. Tomorrow there will be inquiries, perhaps subpoenas. We shall accommodate the law with the minimum of inconvenience. Meaning you'll stay in that chair and glare at them. Precisely. He gave a grunt. Fritz will be pleased to restore order, and I will sleep with the assurance that cleverness without restraint is merely another form of stupidity. I grinned. You say that like it's a bedtime story. It is, Wolfe said, and went to the dining room before the coffee could cool. Morning came on soft feet, the way it does when the city is tired of its own noise. The brownstone smelled of coffee and orchids, and if you listened hard, you could almost pretend yesterday hadn't happened. I was at my desk sorting the mail when the bell rang. It was Celia Marotta. She looked clean, but not rested. Ralston wasn't with her, which meant this was personal. Fritz took her coat with a look that said he'd forgive her for the ledgers, but not for the paprika. Wolfe received her in the office without leaving his chair. Miss Marotta, he said, you are early. I didn't want to come, she said, but I had to. Luca came to me at dawn. He's furious, but he isn't blind anymore. He wants to quit Nello's deals, maybe even step away. He asked me what I think. I think he'll listen to you. Wolfe steepled his fingers. I do not counsel criminals on retirement. You already did. You saved him from a worse man. He is seeking absolution. That I cannot sell. Then what can you do? I will offer a fact for you to deliver. Wolfe turned to me. Archie, bring Saul Panzer's note. I fetched the thin sheet Saul had slipped us after Kramer's call. Wolfe tapped it. Mr. Nello did not only steal the guns, he deposited funds for months into a company on Staten Island that Mr. Marotta uses to pay longshore pensions. A leash prepared in advance to prove complicity if your brother resisted. Celia's face went pale. Luca didn't know. I infer he did not. Nello counted on your brother's pride and inattention. The feds will follow the money. Your brother may claim ignorance, but his survival depends on cooperation and humility. If he refuses, he falls. If he cooperates, he may shrink to a size that allows him to live. She stared at the paper as if it were an X-ray. So he chooses between a prison myth and a quiet truth. Precisely. She stood slowly. I'll tell him. Thank you, Mr. Wolfe. Do not thank me for unavoidable reality. After she left, Wolfe went upstairs to the orchids. I was still staring at Saul's sheet when the phone rang. It was Eddie Varyn calling from Penn Station. Archie, he said, voice echoing with iron. I'm on the train. Nobody followed. Yet. Good. Keep it that way. Your boss told me to change habits. First habit I'm changing is thinking I owe somebody my loyalty just because I ate their bread. He chuckled. Tell Wolfe thanks. Don't let him hear you say I said it. Then he hung up before sentiment could catch him. At noon, Kramer called. Nello had rolled over on Grady, the buyer, and on a couple of politicians who suddenly remembered meetings out of state. The feds were building a staircase, and everybody on the waterfront was deciding whether to climb down it or be pushed. Kramer also confirmed the backdoor key in Nello's pocket, which brought Fritz a satisfaction he tried hard to hide. Dinner that night was trout. Fritz was in a mood too good to waste on suspicion. Wolfe ate in contented silence, then applied his napkin with exactness. Archie, he said, our client has said goodbye to Gangland. Assuming Penn Station doesn't explode. With him gone, Mr. Marotta must now say goodbye to his illusion of mastery. Whether he does so gracefully is irrelevant to us. I poured coffee. You ever worry about the ones who don't get to say goodbye? Wolfe looked at me over the rim. Every life ends with a farewell. The only question is whether one recognizes it at the time. Mr. Nello did not. Mr. Varyn did. That difference is the measure of wisdom. I raised my cup. Here's to recognizing the exit before the bouncer throws you out. Wolfe snorted softly, which for him was applause. The house was quiet again, the pantry restored, the orchids waiting. Outside, the streetlights blinked, but inside, order held for now. Fritz hummed in the kitchen, and I decided the brownstone had earned its silence, at least until tomorrow's bell. We had dinner to finish,